There is a kind of power that does not shout. It does not demand attention, nor does it seek applause. It moves quietly, like the steady turning of the earth beneath your feet. This power is discipline, and when a person truly embraces it, when they shape their character with it day after day, they become something rare, something unsettling to those who live by impulse. To be disciplined is not merely to wake early or to work long. It is to command oneself. It is to look at desire and say, "You will wait." It is to look at fear and say, "You will not decide for me." Most people are ruled by comfort, by moods, by the opinions of others. But the disciplined individual stands apart. He governs his thoughts before they govern him. He chooses action over excuse, principle over pleasure, duty over distraction. Such a person becomes difficult to manipulate, difficult to tempt, difficult to break. And this is why it unsettles them. Because when you are no longer controlled by praise, their flattery loses its power. When you are no longer wounded by criticism, their insults lose their edge. When you rise each day with intention, unmoved by laziness or doubt, you remind them of their own surrender to ease. Discipline is a mirror, and not everyone wishes to look into it. There will be mornings when your body resists. There will be nights when your mind seeks escape. In those moments, remember, you are not training the body alone. You are shaping the will. Every refusal to indulge weakness strengthens your command over yourself. Every act of consistency builds a fortress within. The world is chaotic. People are inconsistent. Circumstances change without warning, but the one who has disciplined his mind carries order wherever he goes. He does not need the world to be calm. He has cultivated calm within. He does not require motivation. He relies on commitment. He does not chase approval. He answers only to his conscience. And when others witness this steadiness, this refusal to bend to impulse, this quiet certainty, they feel something they cannot name. It is not hatred. It is not admiration alone. It is fear. Not fear of harm, but fear of contrast. For your discipline exposes the fragility of their excuses. Your consistency confronts their inconsistency. Your restraint highlights their indulgence. So become so disciplined that your presence alone commands respect. Let your actions speak so clearly that your words are scarcely needed. Train your mind to endure, your body to obey, and your spirit to remain unmoved by fleeting desires. For the greatest victory is not over rivals, nor over critics, nor over circumstances. It is over yourself. And once you have mastered yourself, there is very little left in this world that can master you. Discipline is not the noise of ambition declaring itself to the world. It is not the dramatic announcement of goals, nor the restless hunger to be seen achieving them. It is quieter than that. It is the decision made in solitude when no one is watching. It is the choice to rise when comfort urges you to remain still. It is the restraint you exercise when anger begs to be expressed. Silent power does not need witnesses, because its authority is internal before it is ever external. Many confuse ambition with strength. They speak loudly of their plans, their visions, their future victories. Yet words are light. They float away with the wind. Discipline is weight. It anchors you. It keeps you steady when enthusiasm fades and when motivation withdraws its warmth. Ambition burns brightly at the beginning, but discipline is the slow, controlled flame that endures the night. It does not flicker with emotion. It remains. There is a certain dignity in silent effort. When you stop announcing your intentions and begin embodying them, something shifts within you. You no longer seek validation for what you plan to become. Instead, you quietly become it. You train your body without displaying every drop of sweat. You sharpen your mind without advertising every insight. You correct your flaws without confessing them to an audience. This silence builds a strength that cannot be shaken by opinion, because it was never built for opinion in the first place. Silent power unsettles those who rely on noise. It cannot be predicted easily. It does not reveal its full measure. Others may mistake your quiet for weakness, your restraint for lack of confidence. Let them. For while they measure strength by volume, you measure it by control, and control requires no applause. When discipline governs you, your actions become deliberate. You speak less but mean more. You promise little but fulfill much. You do not rush to prove yourself, because proof is unnecessary when character is consistent. In this way, your presence begins to carry weight without effort. You walk into a room and do not compete for attention, yet attention settles on you, not because you demanded it, but because steadiness is rare. To cultivate this kind of discipline is to understand that true power is inward, before it is outward. It begins with mastering your reactions, tempering your impulses, and committing to what is right even when no reward is visible. Over time, this quiet commitment shapes you into something formidable. Not loud, not boastful, but unmovable. Fearlessness is often misunderstood. Many believe it means the absence of fear, as if the disciplined person walks through life untouched by doubt or danger. But this is an illusion. Fear visits every mind. It whispers of failure, of rejection, of loss. What separates one person from another is not whether fear appears, but who holds authority when it does. The undisciplined surrender to it. The self-mastered acknowledge it, then proceed according to reason. True fearlessness is born from self-mastery. When you have trained yourself to rise despite resistance, to act despite hesitation, you begin to trust your own command. You learn that emotions are temporary guests, not rulers. Anxiety may knock at your door before a difficult task. Uncertainty may cloud your thoughts before a bold decision. Yet discipline teaches you to step forward anyway. You do not wait for courage to feel comfortable. You move while your hands still tremble. This kind of strength is cultivated slowly. Each time you choose what is right over what is easy, you reinforce your authority over yourself. Each time you endure discomfort without complaint, you weaken fear's influence. Fear feeds on avoidance. It grows when you retreat. But when you face what unsettles you, when you speak the difficult truth, when you accept responsibility, when you attempt what others avoid, you diminish its hold. Self-mastery also removes the deeper source of fear, dependence on outcomes. Much of our anxiety arises from clinging to results we cannot control. We fear failure because we have attached our identity to success. We fear criticism because we have attached our worth to approval. But when you discipline your mind to focus only on what lies within, your control, your effort, your integrity, your conduct, you become lighter. You no longer tremble before uncertain outcomes because you have rooted yourself in deliberate action. There is a quiet confidence that emerges from this practice. It is not arrogance, for it does not assume victory. It is not recklessness, for it does not ignore risk. It is steadiness. You understand that whatever comes, you will respond with reason rather than panic. You trust your ability to endure, and endurance dissolves much of what once frightened you. When others observe such composure, they often mistake it for extraordinary talent or luck. They do not see the countless small decisions made in private, the repeated acts of restraint, the steady training of the will. They only see the calm exterior in moments where they themselves would falter. Yet that calm was built piece by piece through discipline, and from that discipline grows a fearlessness that does not shout, but stands firm when the ground beneath others begins to shake. Emotional control is perhaps the most misunderstood form of strength. Many imagine strength to be forceful, loud, even aggressive. They believe power is proven through domination or intensity. Yet the highest form of strength is restraint. It is the ability to feel deeply without being governed by what you feel. It is the capacity to experience anger without becoming cruel, to encounter praise without becoming arrogant, and to suffer disappointment without surrendering to despair. Emotions are natural. They arise quickly, often without invitation. A harsh word can ignite irritation. An unexpected failure can stir frustration. A moment of success can inflate pride. These reactions are human, but discipline teaches you that the first impulse is not the final authority. Between stimulus and response there is a space, however small, and in that space lies your power. The undisciplined react immediately, becoming servants to their moods. The disciplined pause. They examine, they choose. To control your emotions is not to suppress them as though they are weaknesses to be hidden. It is to understand them without allowing them to command you. When anger rises, you ask whether it is useful or destructive. When fear appears, you question whether it is rational or exaggerated. When excitement swells, you temper it with perspective. This inner dialogue strengthens your mind. It reminds you that you are not the storm. You are the observer of it. Such control requires constant practice. It is easy to remain calm when circumstances are pleasant. The true test comes in difficulty. When someone insults you, your pride demands retaliation. When you are overlooked, resentment seeks expression. When events move against you, frustration pushes for complaint. In these moments, emotional control becomes an act of discipline. You refuse to let temporary feelings dictate permanent consequences. There is a quiet dignity in this mastery. Others may shout, accuse, exaggerate, or collapse under pressure. You remain steady, not indifferent but composed. You speak carefully when others speak recklessly. You act deliberately when others act impulsively. Over time, this steadiness shapes your character. People begin to recognize that you cannot be easily provoked or manipulated. Emotional control also protects your energy. When you react to every slight or setback, you exhaust yourself. But when you choose your responses wisely, you conserve strength for what truly matters. You become less distracted by trivial offenses and more focused on meaningful action. In this way, emotional discipline transforms you. It makes you reliable in chaos, clear in confusion, and firm when others are unstable. There is a quiet battle that takes place each morning before the world ever sees you. It is the moment when comfort invites you to remain where you are, wrapped in ease, free from effort. Desire whispers that you deserve rest, that you can begin tomorrow, that one delay will not matter. To rise before desire, to act before comfort is not a dramatic gesture. It is a private decision. Yet in that decision, your character is revealed. Most people wait to feel ready. They wait for motivation to stir their energy, for inspiration to spark their movement, but feelings are unreliable companions. They shift with the weather of circumstance. Discipline understands this and does not negotiate with mood. It does not ask whether the task feels pleasant. It asks whether it is necessary. And if it is necessary, it is done. Acting before comfort means you no longer consult your cravings as if they are wise counselors. You recognize that comfort seeks preservation, not growth. It prefers the familiar over the beneficial. It resists strain, even when strain strengthens you. When you choose to work while others postpone, to train while others indulge, to study while others scroll through distraction, you are not punishing yourself. You are shaping yourself. This practice builds an inner authority. Each time you override the impulse to delay, you reinforce the truth that you command your body and mind. You prove to yourself that ease does not dictate your actions. There is a subtle pride in this, not the pride that seeks admiration, but the quiet satisfaction of self-respect. You begin to trust your own word. When you decide something must be done, you do it. There is no long debate, no endless negotiation. Comfort is seductive because it feels harmless. A few extra minutes of rest, a brief escape from effort, a small indulgence to soothe fatigue. Yet when these small concessions accumulate, they weaken resolve. The disciplined person understands that greatness is not destroyed in a single dramatic failure, but in repeated surrender to minor ease. To rise before desire is to place principle above preference. To act before comfort is to recognize that growth demands friction. Muscles strengthen under resistance. The mind sharpens under challenge. Character solidifies under consistent effort. And so you move, not because it is easy, but because it is right. Not because you feel like it, but because you have decided that your decisions will no longer be ruled by fleeting sensations. Praise and criticism are two voices that echo loudly in the human mind. One flatters, the other wounds. One lifts you briefly above the ground, the other attempts to pull you beneath it. Most people spend their lives chasing the first and fleeing from the second. Yet both are equally dangerous when allowed to shape your sense of self. Discipline teaches a different posture. It teaches indifference, not coldness, not arrogance, but steady balance. When praise arrives, it feels warm. It affirms effort, recognizes talent, and soothes insecurity. But if you are not careful, it becomes addictive. You begin to act not from principle, but from the desire to hear those words again. You adjust your behavior to maintain approval. Slowly, without noticing, your actions are no longer guided by reason, but by applause. In this way, praise can become a subtle chain. Criticism, on the other hand, strikes at pride. It exposes flaws, questions competence, and sometimes attacks unfairly. The instinct is to defend, to retaliate, or to retreat. Yet criticism, too, can enslave you. If you allow it to define your worth, you shrink under its weight. You hesitate where you once acted confidently. You silence your voice to avoid further judgment. Thus, both admiration and disapproval hold power over the undisciplined mind. To remain indifferent is to reclaim that power. It is to understand that neither praise nor criticism alters your character unless you permit it. You examine both with reason. If praise is justified, you accept it calmly, without exaggerating your own importance. If criticism is fair, you use it to improve. If it is unjust, you let it pass without disturbance. In each case, you remain anchored to your principles rather than to external opinion. This steadiness unsettles others. They expect visible reaction. They anticipate that flattery will sway you or that insult will provoke you. When neither succeeds, they are left uncertain. But your composure is not performance. It is the result of understanding that your worth is measured by your conduct, not by commentary. Indifference does not mean you ignore feedback or reject connection. It means your core remains untouched by fluctuation. You do not rise too high with applause nor sink too low with blame. Your effort continues the same. Your standards remain intact. In this way, you move through the world guided by conscience rather than by crowd, steady in purpose, unaffected by the changing tones of approval and rejection that surround you. Impulses are swift. They arise without warning, pressing for immediate satisfaction. A sharp reply forms on your tongue before thought can intervene. A distraction pulls at your attention the moment effort becomes demanding. A craving insists that relief must come now, not later. To live without discipline is to be carried from one impulse to another, like a leaf moved by every shifting wind. But mastery begins when you refuse to move simply because something within you pushes. The mind, left untrained, seeks novelty and ease. It jumps from task to task, searching for stimulation. It avoids what is difficult and clings to what is pleasurable. In this state, concentration becomes fragile. Goals are abandoned at the first sign of resistance. Promises made in moments of clarity are broken in moments of weakness. Without mastery over impulses, consistency is impossible. Distractions are the modern form of temptation. They do not always appear harmful. Often they seem harmless, even productive. A brief glance at a screen, a short escape into entertainment, a quick indulgence to clear the mind. Yet these small diversions fragment attention. They erode depth. They weaken the ability to remain with one task until it is complete. Over time, the mind becomes restless, incapable of stillness. To master impulses is not to deny all pleasure or to live rigidly. It is to choose timing rather than surrendering to urgency. When the urge to procrastinate arises, you notice it, but you continue your work. When irritation sparks, you pause before responding. When distraction calls, you decide whether it aligns with your purpose. This pause, this brief moment of awareness, is where discipline lives. Each time you resist an unnecessary impulse, you strengthen your authority over yourself. You prove that desire does not dictate direction. You discover that most urges lose their intensity if not immediately obeyed. They pass like waves. What remains is your commitment. There is a quiet power in sustained focus. When others drift from one impulse to the next, you remain anchored. Your work deepens. Your thoughts become clearer. Your actions align with intention rather than with appetite. Over time, this control shapes your identity. You are no longer someone who reacts instantly, who is pulled by every passing temptation. You become deliberate, steady, governed not by fleeting urges, but by chosen principles that guide your steps, even when impulses attempt to lead you elsewhere. True discipline often requires solitude. The path of consistent effort of self-mastery is rarely crowded. Those who cling to comfort, to ease, or to distraction will not accompany you for long. They cannot keep pace with someone who rises before dawn, who resists temptation, who acts steadily while the world wavers. To be disciplined is to walk a path that few others choose, and in that choice there is a certain loneliness. This loneliness is not merely physical. It is the awareness that your priorities, your commitments, and your standards will be misunderstood. People may misinterpret your restraint as rigidity. They may question your motivations or scoff at your dedication. Friends may abandon plans to indulge their impulses while you remain focused. The crowd moves toward convenience, toward distraction, toward fleeting satisfaction. You move differently, and in doing so, you stand apart. Yet there is a quiet strength in this separation. The disciplined mind does not rely on external affirmation. It does not need applause to continue, nor companionship to sustain effort. It finds its authority within. Each act of consistent choice, each refusal to follow the majority, reinforces the independence of will. Solitude becomes not a punishment but a teacher, revealing the depth of character that is otherwise hidden in the noise of social distraction. Loneliness sharpens perception. Without constant external chatter, you begin to hear your own thoughts with clarity. You notice impulses that might have gone unchecked. You recognize patterns of weakness that require attention. You learn to converse with yourself honestly, to hold yourself accountable in ways that no observer could enforce. The solitary path cultivates self-reliance, and from self-reliance emerges confidence that is not contingent upon others. It is easy to seek comfort in the presence of others, to mirror their habits and desires. The disciplined person resists this. To be guided by principle rather than peer pressure is to be alone in conviction. Yet those who embrace this solitude are not lonely in spirit. They are fortified, each decision made independently. Each temptation resisted without witness strengthens the mind. Each moment spent apart from distraction becomes an opportunity to fortify resolve. Over time, the solitude of discipline transforms. It is no longer the absence of others that defines it, but the abundance of control, focus, and clarity it provides. The disciplined individual walks through the world anchored in self-command, unaffected by the wavering intentions of those around him. In the quiet of independence, he discovers that the power of true discipline is both forged and revealed in the moments when he stands alone. Pain is a teacher that few willingly attend. It arrives unannounced, often without reason, and it tests both body and mind. Most recoil from it, seeking comfort, avoidance, or escape. Yet discipline sees in pain not a punishment but a tool. Each discomfort, each challenge, each moment that demands endurance, carries within it the opportunity to strengthen the spirit. To turn pain into training is to transform what opposes you into what serves you. Physical discomfort is the most obvious. A cold morning, aching muscles, fatigue that threatens to halt motion, all of these are invitations to test resolve. When you continue despite soreness or exhaustion, you reveal the extent of your self-command. You prove that the will is stronger than sensation. The body, though limited, obeys the mind when trained patiently, and in this obedience, confidence grows. The next challenge becomes less intimidating, because you have learned that you can endure, that resistance can be met with calm persistence. Yet pain is not only physical. Emotional trials, setbacks, disappointments, betrayals, and failure press just as heavily, sometimes more so. They can immobilize the untrained mind, leaving it reactive, anxious, and discouraged. Discipline transforms these moments into lessons. Every wound, every loss, every embarrassment is observed, measured, and understood. Instead of being broken by adversity, the disciplined mind asks, what can be learned here? How can this moment, however bitter, serve to strengthen endurance, clarity, and character? The process is gradual. It requires repeated exposure, the willingness to face discomfort repeatedly rather than seeking its avoidance. Each instance builds resilience. The mind becomes accustomed to challenge. The spirit grows flexible in ways that are invisible to casual observers. And in this invisibility lies the true power of turning pain into training. Others may see only suffering. You see preparation. You see opportunity. Pain becomes a mirror, reflecting weaknesses to be corrected and strengths to be honed. It exposes laziness, impatience, and reliance on ease, offering the chance to replace them with persistence, patience, and self-reliance. When the disciplined individual confronts suffering, it is no longer frightening. It is expected, understood, and used. The discomfort that would have once paralyzed now becomes a familiar companion, a constant, a teacher whose lessons refine the mind and harden the resolve. In this way, pain ceases to be an obstacle and becomes the forge in which the character of the disciplined is tempered. Consistency is the quiet architect of character. It does not announce itself with grandeur or demand immediate recognition. It builds slowly, brick by brick, day by day, action by action. To be consistent is to align every choice, every effort, every habit with a purpose greater than fleeting moods or momentary impulses. It is the repetition of small, deliberate acts that over time forge strength, mastery, and presence. The world is full of those who begin with enthusiasm, but falter at the first discomfort. The disciplined individual does not wait for inspiration. He shows up because it is what must be done. There is a profound difference between doing something occasionally and doing it without fail. The occasional effort is like a spark, bright but short-lived. Consistency is a fire that endures. It does not rely on motivation, which rises and falls like the tide. It relies on principle. Each day that you commit to your tasks, to your training, to your self-improvement, you reinforce the structure of your character. The mind begins to expect perseverance as a default state, not as an achievement to be celebrated. Habits solidify. Integrity becomes tangible because your actions no longer waver with circumstance. Consistency also teaches patience and humility. Results rarely appear overnight. The seeds you plant in discipline often take months, even years, to bear visible fruit. Yet each day of faithful effort, each repetition of deliberate action compounds into mastery. You learn to trust the process rather than seeking shortcuts. You understand that the strength of character is measured not in spectacular victories, but in the daily, often invisible choices to persist, to endure, to continue, even when the outcome is uncertain. This unshakable regularity shapes perception. Others notice, though they may not articulate it. When someone consistently rises before the day begins, acts without seeking approval, and performs with diligence while the world distracts itself with novelty, they radiate authority. Their words carry weight because their actions have long since spoken louder. Their presence is steady, reliable, and commanding because it is grounded in habit, not in whim. Consistency, above all, cultivates identity. When effort is repeated without fail, when discipline becomes the lens through which each decision is viewed, the person you are becomes inseparable from the choices you make. You no longer simply act, you exist in alignment with your principles. You do not become inconsistent, for inconsistency would betray the self you have forged. Each day, each act, each moment of deliberate repetition is another thread woven into the fabric of the individual, who refuses to bend to circumstance or distraction. The world is chaotic. Circumstances shift without warning. People falter, systems fail, and events unfold that are beyond comprehension or control. In such a world, most are tossed about like leaves in a storm, reacting to every gust, clinging to whatever anchor they can find. Yet there is a place of calm that no external force can disturb. It is cultivated through discipline, trained through habit, and anchored in reason. The one who becomes unshakable carries order within, independent of the chaos that surrounds him. To achieve such steadiness, one must first master the self. Every fluctuation of mood, every surge of desire, every pang of fear is tested against reason. The disciplined mind does not surrender to impulse. It does not permit comfort, distraction, or irritation to dictate action. It observes, evaluates, and chooses. In this constant exercise, resilience grows. Challenges that once would have provoked despair are now met with calm. Difficult people and shifting circumstances are no longer capable of commanding the spirit. The foundation of steadiness is built not in moments of ease, but in repeated encounters with difficulty, faced deliberately and without complaint. Being unshakable does not mean being untouched by life. Storms may rage, losses may come, and the body may weaken, but the mind remains anchored. While others react, panic, or complain, the disciplined individual navigates with clarity. Decisions are made with reason, not emotion. Effort continues even when motivation falters. The focus remains fixed on principle, not on fleeting circumstance. In this way, inner order becomes stronger than external disorder. The world may shift, but the person who has trained himself does not shift with it. Such steadiness exerts influence without effort. People instinctively recognize that one who is unshakable cannot be easily manipulated. Pressure, provocation, or chaos fails to bend the mind. Others may panic in uncertainty, yet the disciplined remain composed, acting with purpose and deliberation. This presence inspires trust, evokes respect, and silently commands attention. It is not performance, nor is it showy strength. It is the quiet result of repeated effort, reflection, and self-mastery, a calm force that moves through turbulence without being consumed by it. Ultimately, unshakability is both protection and power. It shields the mind from distraction, the will from surrender, and the spirit from despair. In a world of unpredictability, it allows action that is deliberate, thought that is clear, and character that is steadfast. It is the mark of one who has trained himself to endure, to persist, and to remain consistent no matter what storms arise. And through that endurance, the individual becomes a pillar of certainty in an uncertain world.